Hello, hello. Welcome. It's Nicole. How are you today? Hope this day finds you well. Today we are here, you and me. Welcome to The Cure for Chronic Pain. It's a podcast. It's my podcast. I'm Nicole Sachs, LCSW, and I am here to spread the love, spread the hope, and talk about chronic pain recovery in any way that makes sense to you, in any language that will speak to you and hopefully open some willingness in you to find a way to get better, to do the work, to open yourself to yourself. So here we are today. I am bringing you a very fun interview that I did. Oftentimes on this pod, I interview people who have been former clients, have contacted me from around the world, and have healed themselves using my work and Dr. Sarno's principles. Today, I have a rather interesting story for you. The person I'm interviewing today is the beautiful and talented Danielle First. She is a dear friend of mine, one of my best friends on this planet, and a person for whom I have tremendous respect. And the reason that I know her is because actually, the reason I know her has nothing to do with this work. The reason that I know her and she's eligible to be interviewed on this podcast is because even though we were just regular friends, having nothing to do with my professional life, she went through a very odd and confusing time where she was having a chronic condition that she couldn't imagine could possibly be TMS. She had only recently even learned what TMS was when she read my book for the first time. And when she read it for the first time, she read it just to support me because I was a friend of hers and I had written a book, having no idea it would ever apply to her life. And the way it went down was just super interesting and heart-opening for me. And she's going to tell that story today. And she's going to tell a story that began with a chronic condition, but really blossomed into a JournalSpeak practice, a daily practice that has transformed her entire life. And I've watched her transform. And it's been really a very amazing and beautiful thing and very profound for me, being a friend to her and also being able to be a gentle guide when it comes to her health. And so I'm here to talk to Danielle today and share our conversation, which, she is just such a buddy of mine. When it came time to plan this interview, I said, listen, let's not do it on the computer. I said, come to my house. Let's get in my bed. I literally recorded this podcast with her sitting in my bed because the acoustics in my room, everything's carpeted and draped, and it just felt like the best place to record a podcast because we had to share one microphone. So if the acoustics aren't perfect, sorry about that. But, I'm just getting started out. I only have one microphone. But she came to my room, we cuddled in my bed, and we had this conversation, which was so warm and so lovely, and really told the exact story of how this all went down, how she was in the grips of something really terrifying and upsetting to her, and how JournalSpeak pulled her out, and then the practice of which just transformed her entire life. And for any of you guys thinking about coming to my Omega retreat, which is going to be July 21st through the 26th at the beautiful Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York, I'm almost sure Danielle will also be there, probably doing some musical accompaniment, maybe some sound meditation, maybe just hanging out with all of us. She is, in her professional life, a composer. She is an amazingly talented musician. She composes, she plays the piano like an angel, and she sings, and she's just amazing. Everybody's always so taken when she takes the stage. And she also scores documentary film and has many credits out there that are really impressive and impactful. So that's Danielle. She's an amazing person, and I'm really grateful to have her in my life. And hopefully, if you guys decide to join me at Omega, you will also be able to make her acquaintance. And hopefully a lot of other people that I've interviewed on this podcast. I think pretty much all of the people I interviewed are at least planning to come, should it fit into their lives this summer. And I actually just heard from Omega today, and the podcast. This is today we're doing the podcast. The retreat will be live to sign up on March 1st. And so that will be something that I will be advertising here and on all my social media. So people have been contacting me and saying, wait a second, you're not listed yet on the Omega site. I'm worried your retreat is not going to happen. Do not fear. They have confirmed it all over the place. It's definitely happening. I guess the way they work in terms of getting signups is that they have to do it in batches. And my retreat will be live on March 1st. And so you'll be able to sign up online or by calling Omega. And so more information to follow about that. If you are new to my work and you want to learn more about what JournalSpeak is, because you're going to hear this conversation with Danielle and you're going to say, how do I learn about how to do that for myself? And all you have to do is go to www.thecureforchronicpain.com. All my links are there. If you click on the resources tab, all of my other stuff, my YouTube channel, my private Facebook group, this podcast, my book, The Meaning of Truth on Amazon, all of that is linked there. And also, please, if you would like to be contacted about my appearances, any retreat that I'm going to be part of, a wellness conference I'm going to be part of, any new materials I put out there, if you want to be in the know about my work, just go to my website, thecureforchronicpain.com, and sign up on the homepage for the first lesson of my course. First of all, you'll get the course lesson for free, the first lesson. And second of all, then I'll have your email and I will be able to let you know. Don't worry, I'm not going to spam you or try to sell you anything other than stuff that I make, which, please avail yourself of it because I want you to heal and I want you to have the best possible life. I won't sell your email or anything creepy like that. I just want to be able to be in touch with you. And that is the best way because I'm trying to gather a database of people who want to understand more about this work and want to continue to be part of my community and to learn and grow. So if you come to my website, if you sign up and get the first lesson for free, at least I'll just know who you are and where you are on this planet if I want to, from time to time, communicate with you and invite you to participate or to whatever. So do that. Please join us. Your life is worth it. My love, your life is worth it. Okay, so I'm going to talk to Danielle. I did talk to Danielle, but I'm going to share that with you. Sitting in my bed, cuddling with her. She's the cutest little cutie. And she's just so full of love and really full of passion. She wants you to get this. She wants you to get this because it's changed her entire life, and she had no idea how badly she needed it until her body made it impossible to go on without doing it. And then she realized that there were so many things that she was basically being held back by. She was being held back from the fullness of her experience because of all these feelings that she wasn't able to process. And JournalSpeak really helped her do that and helps her do that. So she's just awesome. So I am going to share that conversation with you, and I am going to wish you love and light and everything beautiful. And I am there for you, and I'm thinking of you, and I want you to get better. So hopefully Danielle and I can inspire that a little bit today. All right, here's Danielle. Hi guys, so I am here today with Danielle, and just a little recap of my relationship with Danielle. I met Danielle completely unrelated to my work. She was not a client. She was not anyone who found me on the internet. We were friends outside of this, and we were just friends. And I had exposed her to my work just saying, hey, this is what I do, what do you do, kind of thing. And so she knew about my book. And she even read my book early on, just to be a supportive friend, I guess. But in any case, we did finally have a moment where she was struggling. I'm going to let her tell her story, but she was struggling in her own way. And I reached out to her via email because she was actually on the West Coast at the time and said, might I gently suggest that the problem you're going through might be affected by my work? And I was kind of a little scared to say it to her because I don't like to push my stuff on people. I like people to come to that readiness on their own. But I've always been so appreciative that Danielle took that gentle nudge and said, actually, I'm going to look at this. And her story actually became a really important one in her life and an important one in my life because it helped me understand that you don't necessarily have to be working with me clinically or seeking this out for it to change your life. And I also like to note that when I watch Danielle in her life, her JournalSpeak practice has changed way more than just her physical body. And so, but I want to start out with her story. So welcome, Danielle.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
So Dani, why don't you just tell people listening how this all came about when you were in LA?
Sure. Well, actually, I am a professional musician, and I was working on a project out there. And when I returned home from that project, I started experiencing a very bizarre physical problem. And what was happening was that my eyes started to tear, not just like a few drops here and there, but it was almost like I was crying involuntarily. And for the first day or two, I thought, well, maybe it's allergies, or maybe it's, the cold weather, or maybe it's this and maybe it's that, and surely it's going to pass, because quite frankly, it was very annoying. But after a few days went by, it wasn't going away, and then a week went by, and another week went by, and now it's really starting to aggravate me, because it was getting in the way of driving, it was getting in the way of just normal social situations, because I just was constantly tearing. My eyes were starting to get irritated, so I started booking some appointments with medical doctors. I went to an eye doctor, and I got an examination. They said that there wasn't anything that they could see, but they gave me some drops, of which did not help. I went to an allergy doctor. I got multiple tests, and there were a few allergies. They gave me some pills. They also gave me some drops. Again, nothing helped. I went to my general doctor. I thought maybe it was something with a thyroid or something going on. Of course, I was on WebMD,
Dr. Google.
Dr. Google, trying to research what might be causing this. And I went to the medical doctor and didn't find anything there. So with all these things that I was trying and nothing was working, and now a month has gone by and my eyes are still tearing constantly.
And let me just interject here for a moment that I saw Danielle many times over this period. Mm-hmm. And I saw her with the tissues, and I saw her dabbing her eyes. Mm-hmm. And this is where I say I am hesitant sometimes I don't want to say to people, well, maybe you should do this. And so that's why I say when she was in LA, it did reach a point where I finally insisted that she look. So anyway, go on.
Yes. So it was time again for me to return to LA. So I had been home for a month or 6 weeks. The whole entire time I was home, I was experiencing this eye tearing, and it kept getting worse and worse, and it was getting irritated. I was getting really frustrated and stressed about it emotionally. It was actually getting in the way of a lot of things. So it was time for me to return to Los Angeles, and I thought, well, maybe it's Delaware that I'm allergic to. Maybe,
yeah, it can be.
Well, this wasn't happening to me in LA, so maybe my eyes are going to just dry up and everything's going to be fine once I return to LA. And what happened was actually the opposite. I got to LA and things only got worse. And as they got worse, I started feeling more stress, and I'd started really, I like to network when I go out there, and I felt like I didn't want to leave, the place that I was staying because of this eye thing. It was getting in the way of a lot. It was getting in the way of my work. While I was recording music, I had drops of, water coming out of my eyes onto the piano. And, it was really annoying. It was really frustrating. And I also felt that the more frustrated I got, the worse it was.
Yeah.
And I would wake up in the morning and my eyes would be sealed shut. And nothing was helping and nothing was working. And I even went to like a witch doctor.
Hey, listen, when we're struggling in chronic pain or conditions, we try it all.
Everything. So I went to a witch doctor, and she actually said something along the lines of, your body is crying for you. And then something clicked, and then I heard from my friend Nicole here, and she said, she sent me a really nice message, and she knew that I was struggling. And she said, might I gently suggest that, and that's exactly what you said.
That's what I said.
Gently suggest that you try my work. And I had, as she mentioned, I had read her book, because I thought it was really interesting. I thought, well, how cool is my friend? She wrote a book, and isn't this a great idea? What a great concept this is. But I had stored it away in my brain, and when she said, it was a really good reminder to me, like, hey, you haven't tried this. And honestly, it had now been 2 months or so of this happening to me, and I was sick of it, and I was desperate, and I was annoyed, and nothing else was working. And so it was I felt like I was willing to do anything.
Yeah, and I will say that's what I often tell people. Desperation leads to surrender, and surrender leads to truth. And unfortunately, as human beings, sometimes we have to be pushed to the precipice of surrender by desperation. And when Danielle had been to the doctors and tried the pills and tried the drops, and, she finally became open. And, listen, I didn't push it on her before, but I think your readiness was pretty real when you started.
Yeah, it was. And it was that, gift of desperation, really, because I sat down, and at first I had to time myself because, it was just an unnatural, it was just something I'd never, the discipline or just the whatever it took to get me there. And I sat down with a notebook and a pen, and I timed myself for 20 minutes. And I just let it out, whatever. It was incredible to give myself the permission,
right,
to just be raw and to just tell the truth, and knowing that I didn't have to read it to anyone. I didn't even have to reread it myself. It was really just about getting it out of my body. And so there was a tremendous permission and freedom in that, and a relief. So I started writing.
And let me actually just interrupt, because some people listening to this won't be familiar with JournalSpeak. What Danielle's talking about right now is a JournalSpeak practice that she learned from reading my book. Another place you can learn about it is on my website. Another place you could learn about it is on my YouTube channel, on my Facebook page, which is called JournalSpeak. I'm gonna put all these links in the intro. But the point of the matter is, what she is describing is journaling in a JournalSpeak fashion without a fear of editing yourself or making what you're saying socially acceptable, polite. You're knowing that nobody else is ever going to read it, and you don't even have to read it again, because you can destroy it right when you're done. So I just want to put that in there in case anyone's listening to this podcast for the first time and they're like, what is she talking about? If you are interested in learning more about JournalSpeak, there are so many places to learn about it. So, but anyway, Dani, go on.
Yes. So I was very raw, and I was very honest, and I would destroy the page, after 20 minutes. And I did this. This was the first thing that I did in the morning when I, had my coffee. I was doing this, and as I went on with it, as the days went on, and it started becoming more of a routine, or I started getting in the hang of it, I noticed that I didn't need the timer, and I was going for a bit longer. And I was getting more and more really in there with
gotta get in there,
more and more impolite, and more I didn't realize how angry I was. I really didn't.
I hear that a lot.
I had so much anger, and I actually had a lot of shame around that anger.
Yep.
And so it was just this huge catharsis of being able to just say all those things, and having them not have to mean something, or having not being judged.
Or it doesn't mean anything about you that you think that way.
Right, exactly. It doesn't mean anything about me. And I was able to really get a lot of this toxicity out of me. Just a lot of these, it really was the shame and the guilt around, anger, or around, fears that I had, or thoughts about myself, or thoughts about the people that I love, the people that are closest to me, that I would never say to them, or it doesn't even mean that it's real or whatever it is. It was in me. And so after a series of days of doing this, what happened to me was that I actually started to be able to really cry.
Yeah.
To really, really cry. And there were moments when I was journaling that the tears just started coming out, or the rage started coming out, and I just kept the pen going, and I just kept it going. And I want to say that it was a little less than 2 weeks of doing this every day that my eyes actually stopped tearing. It was the only thing that worked for me, and I was amazed. I was amazed. I mean,
people get amazed.
I was absolutely amazed. So from that was a huge, I think marker for me, because it proved to me how powerful this JournalSpeak was. And my eyes have never teared again. However, what I have noticed is that when I do get different, the pain can move sometimes, right. Or and sometimes it starts like a freakish, you feel like you're getting the flu, or you have this nagging neck pain, or these headaches, or whatever it is. I go right to my journal, and I started up again. And what I've realized is that it's now become part of my daily routine. And I have, you're right, I mean, I have changed because of it, because just doing this in the morning, getting honest with whatever's nagging or whatever's kind of floating around in my brain, it helps me be a lot more clear. It helps me stay pain-free, relatively. I haven't really gotten sick at all since. I mean, it's
I like to say there's no cure for the human condition, right? There's no cure for being a human being. So you're going to feel things. And, one of the things that I've noticed in you, Dani, is that you have evolved through your willingness in accepting your physical stuff more. Mm-hmm. Remember the hives?
Oh, yeah.
How can we forget the hives? So essentially, I remember, so Dani, so in my experience of this is that I watched her suffer for months with this eye thing. And then I made the gentle suggestion, and she started doing the work, and all of a sudden, well, through her hard work, and all of a sudden, her eyes literally stopped completely. Mm-hmm. So she was back to complete normal with the eyes. Mm-hmm. But then I remember it was maybe like a month later, mm-hmm. where she was like, I have this problem, I keep getting hives. Mm-hmm. And she was going to the allergist. Mm-hmm. And see, this is something that I think is really informative, and it's really important for people to understand, because we are all human, and we are all susceptible to believing that every next symptom is now the real thing. Mm-hmm. And when I say the real thing, I have to qualify this. Every symptom is real. Mm-hmm. Every problem is real. Mm-hmm. Every symptom is real. Everything you're experiencing, it's not imagined. It's not in your head. You're not making it up. But when I say the real thing, I mean in that old school Western medical model of, okay, now I have to leave all the mind-body stuff aside, and it's time to go get a medicine, or it's mm-hmm. time to go see a doctor. And I think that I'm all for going to a doctor and ruling things out. I am not a, panacea here. Mm-hmm. You have to go to a doctor if you have a new symptom and make sure that you're not, maybe you are allergic to something, or maybe your thyroid is off. There's different things that afflict human beings. But for the most part, once you've looked at your medical condition and your doctor says, okay, well, as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing really, wrong with you that can be righted by any sort of a procedure or a medicine, then it's time to say, could mind-body work be effective here? And so what I remember with the hives is at first you were a little fooled, right? Yeah. Would you say that's true?
Sure, absolutely true. Mm-hmm. Completely. And the more stressed I got about it, the worse they became, and the flare-up, And so I sat down and I started to journaling again. It had been a little while. I think after the eyes cleared up,
mm-hmm.
I sort of was like, okay, great, everything's normal again. And once again, pain is a great motivator.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. The gift of discomfort. And so I applied it to, I started sitting down and journaling again, and it cleared them up. And I noticed that when I do get stressed, when I have like an acute reaction, I get the hives.
Yeah.
And so
it's your symptom imperative right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right now, that's what it is. And as I look back in my history, I've noticed periods where I've had those different symptoms mm-hmm. that didn't seem to go away, like these chronic things that just kept coming back in different parts of my body. And now it makes so much sense to me in hindsight.
Right.
I'm a very sensitive person. I'm a very emotional person. And I think the way that you explained it to me once is that there's almost too many emotions to digest.
Right.
And JournalSpeak is so key for that, like just getting it out of your body,
right,
getting clear, getting honest, getting it out of your body.
The truth of the matter is we've been taught wrong, mm-hmm. and I apologize in advance to everyone I speak to that a lot of what you've learned has not been true, which is that our emotions are one thing and our body is a separate thing altogether. And what I think people don't get is that if the brain and the nervous system are serving to protect us from a predator, and if the predator of our emotional, overwhelming, life, or our repressed emotions, which need permission to rise, if those are viewed as a greater predator than some hives or some tearing eyes or a migraine that makes you lay down, then your nervous system will always choose the pain in order to protect you, because first of all, your pain slows you down. Second of all, your pain puts you in action, right? You can go to a doctor, or you can get a treatment, or you can call your friends and bitch and moan about it. I mean, there's so many things to do to be in action. But can we really be in action about the pain of our childhood? It's hard to know how to, right? We can go to therapy once a week if we're really willing, but I mean, still, it's hard to know an active measure in order to take care of our emotional life. And that's what JournalSpeak is. It's literally an action we can take that starts to inform our brain and our nervous system that we can feel our feelings without dying. I know it sounds sort of maybe hyperbolic to say, but in the perception of your brain and your nervous system, feeling these feelings will kill you. And that's why the need to protect becomes so agitated and acute, that we can literally be laid up in bed with pain so intense. A lot of people have back pain. I'm starting to understand that there is literally no back pain, no chronic back pain that doesn't involve a very recent injury, that does not involve the mind-body system. It just doesn't. Fear and stress are required for back pain to continue. And I think that most people who have it, if they're to be honest with themselves and check in, they know that's true. Because even if their chronic fear becomes fear of the pain, and they're just like, I can't move, I can't get up, I can't do this, I can't do that, I better not commit myself to this or that, because what if I can't handle it? That fear and that meaning is powerful, man. It is sending a message to your nervous system over and over again. We are not okay. I need your help here, buddy. What can you give me in order to keep me safe? Because right now my mother-in-law is a greater predator than my back pain. And I say that, and it's always kind of a little funny, but the truth is it's real. And so Danielle, what I think could be helpful to people, because what I say often when I interview people is, there are people out there right now and they are listening and they are struggling. First of all, they're struggling to say, is this really true for me? Can emotional exercise really cure a physical condition? And then they're struggling with how to move forward. So what are your JournalSpeak tips, aside from having a daily practice? What are your tips to talk to somebody who might be starting this or who might be having resistance to it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, because I find myself, whenever I meet people and I talk to people and they share with me their chronic, illnesses or pain, it's the first thing that I want to share with them. And I always feel like there's this maybe some disbelief, or, oh, no, I have a medical problem, or no this or no that. And I just try. I mean, it's really just suspend your disbelief to just try. There's nothing to lose, and I guess I had to get to a place where I was uncomfortable enough, but you don't have to get to that place, but it works so profoundly, and sometimes quickly. I mean, for me it was quick. That's not to say that in 2 weeks it's gonna help everyone in every situation, but just to sit down, and it's so simple. And you can do it, you have a pen and a paper, and it's just try it. You owe it to yourself, you got nothing to lose. Why not, So I just, I like to do it in the morning. And that's my personal, that's the time when I feel like it's most helpful to me, because it helps me really get through the day without all these things swirling around, or I'm confused about all these different kind of emotional, feelings, and it really helps me to get those out and to get clear, and I'm a lot calmer on the days that I do it, and I feel, I usually have no, discomforts or pain, so now I want to do it every day. It's like now I'm at a point where I believe it, I've seen how it works for me, and it's just part of my daily routine. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does answer my question. I think that's great. And I think that it's not just, it's not just about pain. Oftentimes, as I've evolved my thinking in this work, pain becomes the littlest, biggest part.
Yeah.
Because it starts with pain, because like Dani just said, pain is a great motivator.
Yeah.
We're human beings. If you're comfortable, we're not going to do shit.
Right.
We're going to sit around and relax. That's why vacation is vacation. The whole point is to do nothing. And when we're in pain and we're struggling, we're very motivated to change and to look at ourselves. And so pain becomes the biggest, littlest part, because now when I listen to Danielle talking, she's saying she feels more peace. She's saying her day goes differently. And that to me is sort of like the graduate work of TMS work. It begins with pain. It begins with, I'm in a jail of my own mind and I can't get out, and I'm sitting here stuck and trapped and paralyzed. But once the pain starts to go, you start to realize that your JournalSpeak practice is your ticket to freedom. Because you are now not being bogged down, and it can be a little thing. I'm raising a lot of children, and one of the things that I think often is when I'm having an issue where I'm feeling really agitated at one of my kids. So let's say, let's throw Isabella under the bus, because, why not? So I have a 16-year-old daughter. She's a junior in high school, and, sometimes she doesn't do her schoolwork or whatever she's doing, and it makes me crazy, and I feel like angry at her and irritated and agitated. But see, one of the things that I don't realize I feel, unless I take it to my JournalSpeak practice, is I also feel 16. And I think people don't realize this, okay? So when we're raising kids, and it's not just about kids, it's about dealing with anything in our lives, sometimes we're not really in that moment. We think we are, but we're really back in high school when someone treated us that way, or we're in elementary school when everybody was bullying and mean to us, or where, you enter into a new job and you think you're in that new job, but you're really in third grade when you change schools and you had to meet all these new people. And what ends up happening is you're unconsciously playing out both those emotional roles. And so what I find from my JournalSpeak practice, what really helps me, is I think I'm just angry at her because she didn't do her homework. But when I get to my practice and I really sit down and get honest with myself and give myself the space and the freedom to really talk, because I know nobody's going to ever judge it or hear it, what I understand is I'm also that child being lectured by my own father, being made to feel less than, being made to feel like I want to rebel. Now I'm angry at her for rebelling, but I also get it. And so there's conflict there. And I think that separating those out, unpacking it, as they tend to say in therapy, and realizing what's now and what's then, what's triggering me versus what is real today, is not only going to take away my pain, because my headache's going to go away when I figure out that I'm super just conflicted and I'm living in two different planes, but it's also going to help me approach her in a way that is less emotional, is less flared up. I can just go to her as her mom and say, all right, honey, well, actions have consequences. I guess you're not going out this weekend, But that's very different than erupting and having a big fight and, not understanding why I'm so keyed up about this. I think many times in life we don't get why we're so keyed up about something. And even though we might be insightful enough and willing enough to say, well, maybe there's more going on here, we don't know how to get to it. And that is something that JournalSpeak naturally allows us to do. It doesn't even take intention. You don't have to say, I want to get to why I'm so agitated. If you do the work, that's the natural place you end up. Would you agree with that, Dan?
I would completely agree. And and it also reminds me, just to share that these days, it isn't physical pain, but it is anxiety.
Yes.
Depression, sadness.
Yes.
Worry, jealousy, frustration, you name it. There's little things that crop up daily in my interactions with people, and then all of a sudden they're in my body or they're on my mind, and I'm feeling it. I'm feeling that heaviness, and I'm feeling that lack of being able to be present. And so it's such an incredible tool, and I go right to the journal, and I just really rigorously honest about it, and it's that permission to just say how I really feel about it and why and what it's bringing up, and knowing that it doesn't have to be shared, or it doesn't have to be judged, or it just doesn't, it's getting it out of me, and it gives me some clarity and as I mentioned before, a tremendous amount of peace. And I feel so much lighter, and I don't have all that lingering. So these days it is the emotions that come in that I know that I don't want these things to get stuck in my body. I don't want any more pain. I don't want any more, freak issues or hives or, God knows what else, it's now just become part of my life that when I feel that heaviness, I sit down and I get it out. And it always leads me to some kind of kernel or some kind of revelation, one way or another, or just a relief. It's just a relief.
Yeah, I think it's so important to know that because, life doesn't have to be this hard. People don't get it. People, especially in America, I have a lot of listeners that listen from all over the world, so I can't speak to other cultures as specifically as I can speak to American culture. I feel like we expect to be anxious and worried all the time. It's like our baseline. We it seems like everybody is. It seems like every other commercial we see on TV is for some medication to make us not so. And it's just when it becomes your reality, when it becomes like the new normal, that everyone's just stressed out and freaked out and worried all the time, and that everything is urgent and there's always an outcome to pre-grieve of what could happen. I think that that leads us to think that that's the way life is, and it's just like, suck it up. That's the way it is to be alive. It's actually not true. It is true sometimes. It's like I said, there's no cure for the human condition, so sometimes it's going to feel that way. But for the most part, you can have more peace than you realize. Now, if you're listening to this podcast, the likelihood is you're like, yeah, well, screw peace. I just can't get out of bed. Or, I don't have a job anymore because I've got this migraine condition or fibro or whatever. So let's start there. Okay, so we're starting there. But I'm just telling you that if you look out into the distance, there's also more to this. And that's why, when I wanted to bring Danielle on the podcast today, I know that she has more to offer than just my eyes were tearing and now they're not. I watch her change, and it's part of it has to do with the fact that she has freedom from this.
Yeah. Freedom and just permission. Like I keep coming back to that word. Permission, yeah. Permission to tell the whole truth, the ugly truth. And allowing myself to do that and not have it, mean anything, and not the judgment, without the judgment.
Right.
And I feel like that's like, for me, that's like the biggest part of it, is being able to like get those things on paper that I wouldn't necessarily want to share with anyone because I don't even know if they're even true. It doesn't even matter. Right. And just not feeling shame or guilt about it. But it's really helped me have some revelations also. And it's helped me be a better partner because I'm not sitting there stewing, I'm not sitting there like suffering in my own,
right. More than necessary
emotions, more than necessary. It's helped me get a lot of clarity, and it's also helped me let go of a lot of these things because I'm actually letting go physically on the page.
Right.
And sometimes I write about the same issue.
That happens a lot.
For weeks.
Over and over, right.
But then at a certain point, I've let it go.
Yeah, it's like a switch is flipped.
Yes.
And people actually ask me that question a lot. They're like, oh, God, I'm talking about my husband again. Or I'm talking about my, that time when my father did this again. And I said, right. But, you're soothing yourself by allowing it to come forth again and again, and to show yourself again and again, I'm here. I'm alive. I can do this. I can talk about this again. I can continue. There's always more to be revealed. So sometimes one situation which seems like it lives, in isolation has touched 100 different areas of your life. And so as it comes up again as, in your work or in your relationships or with your friendships or with your parenting. And it comes up again and again, and you say, oh, well, I see, this has informed so many areas of my life, and that's why it keeps coming up. But you will come to a place of peace. It just might not be right away.
Exactly. It takes what it takes.
Right.
Maybe it will be right away one day with one thing. Maybe it's going to take weeks or months or whatever it is. But it does happen, and it does allow for all of these other openings. That what I found. So it's something that now that it's become a routine. It's just something now that I feel like when it's been a day or two that I've missed it, if I've been traveling or whatever it is, I feel it and I can't wait to sit down and just, oh God, and just get it all out.
Right.
And sometimes I sit for 20 minutes and sometimes I sit for an hour. It's different. But it's working for me. It continues to work for me, and I'm like really passionate about it. So I want to tell everyone, I want everyone to feel good. I want everyone, because it's so simple.
Right. And it's so accessible.
It's so accessible.
Yeah. And another thing Danielle just mentioned that I want to bring up is a lot of people who are afflicted with what we can call it TMS or mind-body illness or chronic issues tend to be these people, and Dani and I are two of them, that we care what other people think. Yeah. We care to be approved of. Oh, yeah. We want to be seen as good people. We're perfectionists. We want the world, we want other people to be happy. Yes. We want other people to be okay. We're not okay unless other people are okay. Ding dong.
Or if we feel like we're in trouble.
Yes, we're always in trouble.
I always want to make myself in trouble.
Right. Well, you don't want to, but, you tend to perceive yourself.
That's where I go. Yeah.
No, and it's funny, and it's so actually really great to have a friend who's so aware, because sometimes Dani and I will have a conversation, like, I'll be really busy, and she will have called me or texted me, and it takes me a few days, and she's like, are you mad at me? And I'm like, I know. I know you need to ask me that, but I'm not mad at you, but I love you because I know you need to ask me that. But see, what I'm trying to say is, you're probably smiling out there if you're listening to this, because you're probably like this too. Most people that are afflicted by these kind of things are these deeply feeling people where it's super important to us that everything's okay, that people are okay with us, that we're okay with other people, that the world is okay, that, things affect us deeply. And so if that's the case, do you understand how much anxiety is just built up on a daily basis just with that kind of personality? So this is more, so I always say, if we're following Dr. Sarno's principles, there are 3 lists. One is childhood, one is daily life, and one is personality. So your very personality, no matter what's going on in that day, will be informing everything. So everywhere you go, you have to unfortunately bring yourself. Yeah. And so when you get there, you have to deal with the fact that everything in your life is filtered through the lens of your personality. And so if I need everybody to be okay with me for me to be okay, which, by the way, I'm working on that, because that's not good, by the way. Don't be that way, please. But if I need everybody to be okay with me for me to be okay, that's a tremendous amount of pressure. Yeah. And that's going to affect everything I do throughout the day. So part of my JournalSpeak practice has been to admit that. Yes. Right? Exactly. And to say out loud, oh, God, I went to this thing and I spoke and I kind of feel like I didn't get the reaction I wanted and now I feel anxious. Say it out loud. Admit it. Because first of all, most of that stuff isn't true anyway. Right. And second of all, nobody cares about you. Right. Right. Everybody is so worried about themselves. I'm sorry if you think everyone thinks bad of you. People hardly even think of you at all.
Right. And I'll go on those tangents in the journal and it's like, God, I think this person thought, badly about me today. And then I'll go on to say, well, why am I like this? I hate that I'm like this. Right. Why do I care so much? I shouldn't care so much. And I just let the pen go. Yeah. Where did this start? Who did this to me? Whose fault is this? And, and then I'll go even deeper with the shame that I even feel about having that kind of personality or having those kind of
that's what happens.
Character defaults that I'm always looking
going
to
back
be
to
in trouble or I'm taking on dramas that aren't even mine, things that don't even belong to me, taking things super personally, and feeling silly about that. So all of that goes on the page.
Yes.
All of it. So one thought goes to the next and it's just about the total honesty of following all those thoughts and all that discomfort and all that shame or whatever it is and laughing and I go from one kind of thought to another. The journals, I actually haven't reread really any of them, but
you never need to.
I never need to.
It's kind of cringy if you do, just to be honest.
All over the place. And I swear a lot. I'll just put it out there.
Yeah.
I swear a lot in my journal.
Fucking A, right?
Fucking A. I do. And it feels good because it's just, I can say whatever
freedom.
I want.
It's just freedom.
That's the best part of it. I can say whatever I want.
I want to tell you that I have one client I'm thinking of right now. And she, when I first met her, said, well, oh dear, I would never say those words. And I said, okay, I hear you. And listen, I respect that. Yes. I get emails a lot. So you can email me if you need to, but telling me, you know, why does a nice girl like you have to use the F word? I hear you and I get it. And I'm not saying that the world is open to us going around and saying F everything, because it's not, and it's not okay. And there is a way to behave, and that's why JournalSpeak is not for the public eye. JournalSpeak is for you to express yourself with that kind of blatant, angry honesty that a 5-year-old would if they had a grown-up brain. See, because you're just a 5-year-old in there with a grown-up brain. So your brain has all the information, and your emotions want to just scream it out. And so part of, I think, the power of using colorful language is that there's words have power, and there's power behind certain words that allow you to release more and release more and release more. So don't be scared. Just don't be scared. And just to kind of finish that story, so this client who says, oh dear, you know, I can't speak that way. Now when I talk to her, she's like, that asshole, you know, and but the thing is, but she's only doing it in her JournalSpeak. Yeah. You know, and sometimes we speak to a trusted advisor in JournalSpeak. So, I mean, because Danielle is such a dear friend, I can go up to her and be like, and this is another thing that I want to invite you guys to do with each other. Once you start JournalSpeaking and you get your friends involved and they're doing their own practice, is I can come up to Dani and I can say, all right, can I JournalSpeak to you for 1 second? And she knows that what I'm saying doesn't mean I really hate my kids or, you know, want to kill everyone. She's going to know that I'm speaking a language that I would really like to vent, and I would like her to listen to it with the spirit of there's no judgment here. Nope. You know, and you don't even really need to feel that way. JournalSpeak usually lasts a really short time. Yeah. Meaning you feel it, you let yourself feel it, and you're like, oh, I love that person. I'm not really angry anymore. You know, that's the way it usually works. If you've done it, you know, sometimes a certain person is like a more of a steep climb, but you know, for the most part. And so, so I don't know, Dan, is there anything else you want to add? Any topping, cherry on the cake of this?
Just do it.
Just do it.
Do it.
Do the work.
Do it.
And when you don't want to do it, then really do it.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
You know, that moment where you're like, oh, God, I don't want to do this today. That's the time to really do it.
Yeah.
Because this is your life, okay? This is your life. You get to live it every day, and the only question that really matters is, how do you feel? Yeah. Right? You could be the most successful person in the world, bathing in money, traveling the world. If you feel like shit, that's not a good day. Right. So how you feel is the most important and the only question that matters. And if you feel well, then everything is available to you.
Amen.
Amen to that, sister. Well, thank you, Dani.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming and
very grateful.
Sharing your experience with us.
Absolutely.
And as for me, this has been The Cure for Chronic Pain, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye.